The ruins of old Seattle lay shrouded in toxic mist as Archer Thorne slipped between crumbling skyscrapers. His breathing mask filtered the worst of the air, but the exertion of his journey had his lungs burning. 6 days of evading Crimson Dominion patrols had taken their toll, but he'd made it. The forgotten underground chamber said to house humanity's last hope. "This is madness," whispered Kira over his comm unit. "The Elders explicitly forbade anyone from seeking the immortal blade." "The Elders are dead," Archer replied flatly, his voice hollow as he recalled the Resistance base burning 3 weeks ago. "And we'll all join them if I don't try something desperate." He switched off the comm before Kira could argue further. The entrance to the chamber, a massive stone door embedded in what once was a subway tunnel, loomed before him. Ancient script decorated its surface, warnings in a dozen dead languages. Archer's fingers traced the engravings as he recalled the forbidden texts he'd studied in secret. "Aurora, the immortal blade," he murmured. "Let's see if you're more than just a myth." Archer removed his pack and withdrew the artifacts he'd collected. A crystal vial of water from the last natural spring, a dagger forged from meteorite iron, and a small wooden box containing soil from the sacred grove. According to the texts, these 3 elements would break the seal that had contained Aurora for 5 centuries. The ritual was simple but precise. Archer mixed the soil and water into a paste, smeared it along the door's central seam, then drove the dagger into the exact center. For several moments, nothing happened. Then a low vibration began, growing until the entire tunnel shook violently. Cracks appeared in the stone door, glowing with blue-white light. Archer stumbled back as the massive door shattered, releasing a shockwave that threw him against the far wall. Gasping for breath, he looked up to see a silhouette emerging from the swirling dust. A woman stepped forward, her eyes glowing with the same blue-white light that had broken the seal. Long dark hair cascaded over armor that seemed to shift between solid metal and liquid shadow. At her hips hung twin blades that emitted a soft hum. She was exactly as the texts described, beautiful and terrifying. Before Archer could speak, she moved. One moment she stood 10 paces away, the next she had him pinned against the wall, one of her blades pressed against his throat. "Who dares disturb my rest?" she demanded, her voice carrying an accent he couldn't place. "My name is Archer Thorne," he managed, feeling the blade's edge just breaking his skin. "I've awakened you because humanity needs you." "Humanity," she spat the word. "The same humanity that sealed me away after I bled for them, that betrayed me when I'd given everything." "A different humanity," Archer said quickly. 500 years have passed, the world you knew is gone." Something flickered in those glowing eyes, confusion, perhaps curiosity. The pressure of the blade eased slightly. 500 years, she whispered, her voice suddenly less certain. Archer seized the moment. The Crimson Dominion rules what's left of civilization. They've rediscovered the ancient technologies, the same ones you fought to keep contained. If they complete the Ascension engine, what remains of humanity will be enslaved or exterminated. The Crimson, her eyes narrowed, who leads them? The Emperor Malachi, descendant of House Crimson. Aurora's blade clattered to the ground as shock registered on her face. House Crimson still exists, after all this time? Fury replaced surprise as she grabbed Archer's collar. "Take me to them, now." "I will," he promised. "But first to the Resistance. You need to understand what's happened while you slept." She released him, stepping back to study him properly. For the first time, Archer felt truly seen by those ancient eyes. "You have courage, Archer Thorne, to risk awakening me." She retrieved her fallen blade. "I am Aurora, though once I had many names. I will see this world you speak of, and then I will decide if your cause is worth my blade." As they emerged from the tunnel into the ruined city, Aurora stopped, her expression unreadable as she gazed at the devastated landscape. The setting sun painted the toxic clouds in shades of blood and gold. "What have they done to the world?" she whispered. Archer stood beside her, suddenly aware of how close their shoulders were. "Will you help us fight them?" The Resistance stronghold nestled within the skeletal remains of an ancient mountain resort, its structures camouflaged against thermal scans by the natural hot springs below. As Archer led Aurora through the hidden entrance, suspicious gazes followed their every step. "Your people fear me," Aurora observed, her voice low enough for only Archer to hear. "They fear what they don't understand," he replied, "and you're essentially a walking legend who shouldn't exist." Commander Thalia Voss awaited them in the war room, her weathered face betraying no emotion as Aurora entered. The silence stretched uncomfortably before the commander spoke. "So you actually found her," Thalia's prosthetic eye whirred as it focused on Aurora. "The infamous immortal blade, half our historians thought you were a myth." Aurora straightened, "And yet here I stand while those who sealed me away are dust." Her eyes narrowed. "I understand descendants of House Crimson still plague this world." "The Crimson Dominion controls 80% of habitable territory." Thalia activated a holographic map. "They've revived technologies from before the cataclysm, your time, and weaponized them." Aurora stepped closer to the projection, studying it intently. "The patterns of conquest are identical. House Crimson always favored the illusion of choice before subjugation." Her fingers passed through the hologram. "These territories marked in red, they fell willingly." Thalia exchanged a surprised glance with Archer. "Yes, how did you know?" "Because I fought this same war 5 centuries ago," Aurora replied bitterly. "I failed then, I won't fail again." Later that evening, Archer found Aurora on the outpost's highest observation deck, staring at the unfamiliar stars. "The constellations have shifted," she said without turning. "Even the heavens are different now." Archer joined her at the railing. "The texts say you were more than human even before you were sealed, that you were changed." Aurora's laugh held no humor. "Is that what they recorded?" She pulled down her collar, revealing a silvery scar that pulsed with faint blue light. "I volunteered for an experimental procedure to combat House Crimson's enhanced soldiers. It worked too well. I became something they couldn't control." Her proximity made Archer intensely aware of her, the ancient power humming beneath her skin, the scent of ozone and something like mountain air that surrounded her. "We leave at dawn for the western outpost," he said, changing the subject. "Dominion patrols are heavy in that sector." "Good," Aurora's eyes gleamed. "I need to test myself against these new enemies." The opportunity came sooner than expected. Halfway to the western outpost, their transport was ambushed by a Dominion patrol. The first plasma burst disabled their engine, sending them skidding into a ravine. "Stay down," Archer shouted as he returned fire from behind the wreckage. A dozen Dominion soldiers advanced methodically, their crimson armor glinting in the sunlight. Aurora stood calmly, ignoring his warning. "What are you doing?" he hissed. She drew her twin blades, which hummed to life with that same blue-white energy. "What I was made for." In a blur of motion, Aurora launched herself at the Dominion soldiers. Archer watched in awe as she moved between them like water, her blades slicing through reinforced armor as if it were paper. She dodged plasma bursts that should have been impossible to avoid, her movements fluid and precise. Within moments, only one soldier remained. Aurora held him by the throat, lifted off the ground. "Tell your emperor the immortal blade has returned," she whispered before dropping him. The terrified soldier scrambled away. Archer approached cautiously. "You let him go." "Fear is a powerful weapon." Aurora wiped her blades clean. "Now they will know what comes for them." As they continued on foot, Archer found himself stealing glances at Aurora. There was something mesmerizing about her presence, dangerous, certainly, but also undeniably alluring. "You have questions?" she stated after catching his gaze for the 3rd time. "Hundreds," he admitted, "but mainly why help us? You could walk away, start a new life." Aurora stopped, turning to face him fully. For a moment, her fierce demeanor softened. "Because you woke me, Archer Thorne?" Her hand briefly touched his chest, directly over his heart. "That creates a bond not easily broken, and because—" she looked toward the horizon where Dominion towers scraped the sky, "I have unfinished business with House Crimson." As night fell, they made camp in the ruins of a pre-cataclysm structure. Sitting across from each other at a small fire, the flickering light cast shadows across Aurora's face, making her seem at once ancient and youthful. "What was it like," Archer asked softly, "before they sealed you away?" Aurora's eyes reflected the flames. "I was a weapon they created but couldn't control. When I refused to execute innocent dissidents, they decided I was too dangerous." She looked up at him, vulnerability briefly visible. 5 centuries of darkness, Archer. 5 centuries of dreaming about revenge." Something unspoken passed between them in that moment. A connection that transcended their differences. A recognition of shared purpose forged in the crucible of resistance. We reach the outpost tomorrow, Archer said, holding her gaze. Then we plan our first real strike against the Dominion. The western outpost buzzed with nervous energy as Aurora pored over schematics of the Dominion weapons facility. Resistance fighters whispered among themselves, both awed and terrified by her presence. The facility's defenses are designed to repel conventional attacks, she pointed to various sections of the holographic display. But they haven't accounted for someone like me. Devon, the outpost's tactical officer, frowned. You're suggesting you infiltrate alone? That's suicide even for whatever you are. I've died once already, Aurora replied dryly. It didn't take. Archer stepped forward. Not alone. I'll accompany her as far as the outer perimeter. We need those prototype weapons, and this is our best chance. Thalia's voice crackled over the comm. Approved, but Archer, if this goes sideways, your priority is getting out alive. We can't lose you. Aurora's eyes narrowed at the commander's words, but she said nothing. That night, as they prepared their gear, Archer found Aurora alone in the armory, methodically sharpening her already perfect blades. Nervous habit, she explained, noticing his gaze. Before every mission, for as long as I can remember. How old were you when they changed you? He asked, sitting beside her. Aurora paused, considering. 22. I volunteered because my village had been destroyed by House Crimson. I had nothing left to lose. She tested the blade's edge with her thumb. How did you join your resistance? Born into it, Archer said, checking his plasma rifle. My parents were leaders before the Dominion found our main base. I was 15 when they were executed. Their eyes met, recognition of shared loss passing between them. Aurora's hand briefly covered his, warm despite her otherworldly nature. We should rest, she said softly, withdrawing her touch. Tomorrow will require everything we have. Dawn found them positioned on a ridge overlooking the Dominion facility, its angular structures jutting from the earth like metal thorns. Remember the plan, Archer said, adjusting his tactical visor. I disable the perimeter sensors. You enter through the cooling systems, neutralize the internal guards, secure the prototype weapons, Aurora finished. This isn't my first infiltration, Archer. He smiled despite himself. Of course not, just be careful. Worried about me? She asked, a hint of teasing in her voice. Someone has to be, he replied, more seriously than he'd intended. Their plan proceeded flawlessly until the third security checkpoint. As Aurora dispatched the guards with terrifying efficiency, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. Archer, she called through their comm link. What's happening? Secondary system we didn't detect, he replied, his voice tight with tension. You need to move faster, reinforcements are coming your way. Aurora accelerated, her enhanced body pushing beyond normal human limits as she fought her way to the central laboratory. The prototype weapons, sleek rifles that could disrupt the neural implants of Dominion soldiers, lay in secured cases. As she gathered them, a massive door slid open, revealing a Crimson elite, soldiers enhanced with the same ancient technology that had created Aurora. His armor pulsed with familiar energy, eyes glowing red behind his visor. The immortal blade, he said, his voice distorted. You're real. Very, Aurora replied, dropping the cases and drawing her swords. The fight that followed pushed even Aurora's abilities to their limit. The elite matched her speed, predicted her movements. For the first time since awakening, she felt genuine fear, not of death, but of failure. A lucky strike sent her crashing into the laboratory wall. As the elite advanced for the killing blow, a plasma burst struck him from behind. Archer stood in the doorway, rifle raised. Get away from her, he growled, firing again. The distraction gave Aurora the opening she needed. With blinding speed, she drove both blades through the elite's chest. As he fell, his helmet retracted, revealing a young face marked with Crimson Dynasty features. There will be more like me, he gasped. The Emperor has been preparing for your return for generations. Aurora stepped back, disturbed. They knew I would wake. They never stopped fearing you. The elite's eyes dimmed as he died. With alarms still blaring, they gathered the weapons and escaped through maintenance tunnels. Once clear of the facility, they paused in an abandoned structure to catch their breath. You saved my life, Aurora said, examining a wound on her side that was already healing. That was foolish. You should have secured the weapons. Archer met her gaze steadily. The weapons weren't worth your life. Something shifted in Aurora's expression. Surprise, confusion, perhaps even gratitude. Before she could respond, he continued. The elite said they were expecting you. How could they know? Aurora's face darkened. Someone must have preserved knowledge of the sealing ritual and how to reverse it. The question is why they didn't try to stop you from awakening me. She moved closer, her hand raising to touch his face. Thank you, Archer. It has been a very long time since anyone risked themselves for me. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibility. Slowly, deliberately, Aurora leaned forward and pressed her lips to his, tentative at first, then with growing certainty. Archer responded in kind, his arms encircling her waist. When they finally separated, Aurora's eyes held a vulnerability he hadn't seen before. We should return to base, she whispered, her fingers still lingering on his jaw. Your commander will be waiting for her weapons. Archer nodded, but neither moved immediately, both reluctant to break the newfound connection forged in the heart of danger. 3 successful strikes against Dominion targets had the resistance buzzing with newfound hope. Aurora had become their secret weapon, their impossible advantage, but tensions simmered beneath the surface of triumph. She's too dangerous, Devon argued during the council meeting. You've seen what she can do. How do we know she won't turn that power against us? Archer bristled. Aurora has risked her life repeatedly for our cause. She's earned our trust. Has she? Commander Thalia interjected. Or has she earned yours specifically, Archer? Your relationship with her hasn't gone unnoticed. The room fell silent. The growing intimacy between Archer and Aurora had become the subject of whispered conversations throughout the base. My personal feelings don't change the fact that without her, we'd still be hiding in the mountains instead of fighting back, Archer replied evenly. Later, he found Aurora on the training grounds, her blades moving in hypnotic patterns as she practiced forms that hadn't been seen in 5 centuries. They fear you, he said simply. As they should, she sheathed her weapons. Fear keeps them alert, keeps them alive. Archer approached, taking her hands in his. But I don't want you to be alone in this fight. These people need to trust you, not just fear you. Aurora's expression softened. I've been alone for so long, I've forgotten how to be anything else. Her fingers intertwined with his. Until you. Their lips met in a kiss deeper than their first, laden with growing emotion neither had fully acknowledged. Aurora pressed closer, her body fitting against his with perfect synchronicity, as if they'd been designed for each other across the centuries. That night in the privacy of Archer's quarters, their connection deepened. Aurora's skin glowed faintly in the darkness as Archer traced the silvery scars that mapped her transformation. Each touch, each kiss was an exploration, her inhuman strength held carefully in check as she learned his body in turn. I never expected this, she whispered against his neck. When I was sealed away, I thought only of vengeance, not. Not this, Archer finished, his hand cradling her face. Not you, she corrected, her usually fierce eyes gentle in the dim light. They moved together with increasing urgency, the boundaries between them dissolving in waves of shared pleasure. For those hours, Aurora wasn't the immortal blade, the weapon of legend. She was simply a woman rediscovering what it meant to be human. Morning brought reality crashing back. Alarms blared throughout the base as they hurriedly dressed. Dominion forces approaching from all vectors, announced the automated warning system. Breach in sectors 7 and 9. That's impossible, Archer said as they raced toward the command center. They couldn't have found us unless someone told them, Aurora finished grimly. The scene at the command center confirmed their fears. Commander Thalia stood with her sidearm aimed at Devon, who was restrained by 2 guards. Caught him transmitting our coordinates, Thalia explained tersely. He's been feeding the Dominion information for months. Devon's face twisted with hatred. The Emperor knows what she is, he spat, glaring at Aurora. What she'll become if she's allowed to reach her full power. I've seen the historical records. She's not our savior. She's the harbinger of something worse than the Dominion. Aurora went very still. What records? The Emperor has preserved knowledge from before the cataclysm, Devon continued, struggling against his restraints. The transformation process that created you was just the first stage. The longer you live, the more powerful you become and the less human. You're a ticking bomb. Archer moved protectively toward Aurora, but her expression had already closed off, becoming the impassive mask he'd first seen when she awakened. "Is that why they sealed me away?" she asked quietly. "Not because I disobeyed, but because they feared what I would become." Before Devon could answer, the base shook with the impact of Dominion bombardment. "We need to evacuate," Thalia ordered. "Triage protocols, essential personnel and equipment only." As the resistance scrambled to escape, Aurora stood unnaturally still, processing Devon's revelation. Archer touched her arm gently. "Aurora, we need to move." "You should go," she said distantly. "I'll hold them off." "Not a chance," he replied fiercely. "Whatever you are, whatever you might become, we face it together." For a moment she seemed ready to argue. Instead, she nodded once sharply. "Then we fight together," she agreed. They made their stand at the base's main entrance, buying time for the evacuation. Aurora moved like a force of nature, her blades cutting through Dominion troops with frightening efficiency. Archer fought at her side, their movements perfectly coordinated after weeks of fighting together. As the last transport prepared to depart, Aurora suddenly stiffened, her eyes fixed on the Dominion command vehicle approaching through the smoke. "He's here," she whispered. "Who?" Archer asked, reloading his weapon. "The Emperor." The transport hummed behind them, ready for evacuation. Aurora turned to Archer, decision clear in her eyes. "This ends now," she said. "Get the others to safety." "Aurora." She silenced him with a kiss, fierce and desperate. "I won't disappear again, Archer Thorne, but I need to face him alone." Before he could protest, she pressed something into his hand, a small device pulsing with the same blue-white energy that powered her blades. "If I don't return, use this. It contains everything I know about what I am, what I might become." With one last look, she turned and walked into the smoke, her swords blazing with otherworldly light. As the transport lifted off, Archer watched her become a streak of blue energy, cutting through Dominion forces toward their leader. "Bring us back around," he ordered the pilot. "We're not leaving her." The Emperor's flagship hovered above the ruined Resistance base, its massive hull eclipsing the evening sun. Inside, Aurora stood before the man whose ancestors had ordered her imprisonment centuries ago. Emperor Malachi Crimson was younger than she expected, barely 40, with the same sharp features that had marked the dynasty for generations. He studied her from his command throne with undisguised fascination. "The immortal blade," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. 500 years and you haven't aged a day." "While your family continues its tradition of tyranny," Aurora replied coldly. "Some things never change." Malachi smiled. "And some things do. I've spent my life studying you, Aurora. The records my ancestors preserved tell quite a story." He descended from his throne, circling her with clinical interest. Aurora remained motionless, though every instinct screamed to strike him down. "The scientists who created you didn't fully understand what they'd done," Malachi continued. "The cataclysm that followed your sealing wasn't natural. It was the first manifestation of your power, leaking through your prison." Aurora's composure faltered. "That's a lie." "Is it?" Malachi stopped before her. "You feel it, don't you? The change is accelerating since your awakening, the power growing within you that you can barely contain." She refused to acknowledge the truth in his words, how her abilities had been increasing daily, how she sometimes heard whispers from the energy flowing through her veins. "My ancestors sealed you away not out of fear, but preservation," Malachi said softly. "They couldn't kill you, so they put you in stasis until we developed the technology to help you." "Help me?" Aurora laughed bitterly. "Your troops have been trying to kill me for weeks." "Testing you," he corrected, "measuring how your powers have grown during your imprisonment." He extended his hand. "Join me, Aurora. Together we can harness your potential to reshape this broken world." The flagship suddenly shuddered under heavy bombardment. Alarms blared as Malachi's officers reported multiple resistance ships attacking their position. Aurora smiled coldly. "It seems my friends didn't abandon me after all." Rage flashed across Malachi's face. "Kill them all," he ordered his commanders. Turning back to Aurora, his mask of benevolence vanished. "You could have been a god. Instead, you'll watch everyone you care about die again." Something snapped inside Aurora. The carefully controlled power she'd been containing since her awakening surged forward, crackling along her skin in arcs of blue-white energy. Her eyes blazed like twin stars as she drew her blades. "No," she said simply, "I won't." The battle that followed tore through the flagship's decks. Aurora moved faster than she ever had before, her blades cutting through reinforced bulkheads as easily as flesh. Dominion elites fell before her, their enhanced abilities no match for her unleashed fury. Above the base, Archer led the Resistance counterattack, coordinating their remaining ships to create a diversion. When a massive explosion tore through the flagship's command deck, his heart stopped. "Aurora," he whispered, steering his craft closer to the burning vessel. His comm unit crackled. "The Emperor is retreating to his escape pod," reported a Resistance pilot. "South quadrant." Archer immediately changed course, pushing his craft to maximum speed. As he approached, he spotted Malachi's ornate pod launching from the dying flagship, with a familiar blue glow in pursuit. Aurora moved through space itself, the energy that powered her now enveloping her completely, allowing her to survive the vacuum. She overtook the escape pod, her blades piercing its hull. Archer watched in awe and terror as the pod's systems failed, sending it plummeting toward the surface below. Hours later, after the Resistance had secured the area, Archer found Aurora standing amid the wreckage of the pod. Emperor Malachi lay dead at her feet, his body partially crystallized from exposure to her unleashed energy. "Aurora," Archer approached cautiously, shocked by her appearance. The blue-white energy coursed visibly through her veins now, her eyes entirely luminous. The transformation Devon had warned about was accelerating. "He was right," she said, her voice resonating strangely. "I'm changing, becoming something else." Archer reached for her hand, ignoring the energy that stung his skin. "We'll figure it out, the Dominion's research. Will take years to understand," she finished. "And I don't have years, whatever this transformation is, it's happening now." Her luminous gaze softened as she looked at him. "I need to leave, Archer." "Leave where?" "Somewhere isolated, until I understand what I'm becoming." Her hand cautiously touched his face. "I don't want to hurt anyone, especially you." Archer covered her hand with his own despite the pain. "Then I'm coming with you." Aurora shook her head. "Your people need you. The Dominion is wounded but not defeated." "And I need you," he replied simply. For a long moment, she studied him. Then, with deliberate control, she drew the energy back into herself until she appeared almost human again, though her eyes still glowed faintly. "It takes everything I have to control it," she admitted. "But for you, with you, I'll try." The kiss they shared was charged with literal electricity, a dangerous and beautiful connection between human and something beyond human. 3 months later, from a remote mountain laboratory built within a former Dominion research facility, Aurora and Archer sent a message to Commander Thalia. The Resistance had grown into a proper liberation force, reclaiming territories as the fractured Dominion struggled without its emperor. "The transformation continues," Aurora dictated as Archer transcribed. "But we're making progress understanding it. The energy responds to emotion, particularly strong ones." She glanced at Archer with a smile. "Love seems to stabilize it better than anything else." Archer added his own note. "Tell the Council we've discovered Dominion research suggesting Aurora isn't unique. There may be others like her, sealed away in different locations. We'll continue our work here, but soon we'll be ready to rejoin the fight and find the others." As night fell over their mountain sanctuary, Aurora stood on the balcony, watching the stars. Archer joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Having second thoughts?" he asked. She turned in his embrace, her eyes glowing softly in the darkness. "About you? Never." Her fingers traced the now familiar pattern of scars on his shoulder where her energy had marked him during their most intimate moments. "About what I'm becoming, every day." "Whatever you become," Archer said, pulling her closer, "you won't face it alone." Aurora smiled, allowing herself to believe in possibilities beyond vengeance and war. 500 years of darkness," she murmured against his lips, "was worth enduring to find you at the end of it." Their silhouettes merged as they embraced, human and more than human, their shadows cast long across the future they would forge together. A future neither fate nor time had ever intended, but one they would claim nonetheless.